Hello everyone. Today our group will delve into the captivating journey of Christopher Columbus, comparing his first and second voyages spanning from 1492 to 1496. We'll explore the stark differences in native behavior towards the Spaniards as documented in Columbus's logbook versus accounts by Oviedo and Hernando. Additionally, we'll dissect the failures and limitations of Columbus as reflected in his own writings, shedding light on the complexities of his expeditions. Additionally, we aim to delve into the inquiry regarding Columbus as a modern man. In our discourse, we intend to diverge from the Eurocentric viewpoint commonly associated with Columbus. The first question that comes to our mind is, who was Columbus? Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer and navigator who is credited with quote unquote discovering the New World for Europe. His first voyage began in 1492 and subsequently he completed three more voyages, further exploring the Americas. Christopher Columbus had to face numerous challenges in securing sponsorship for his voyage. Initially rejected by the Portuguese crown, he turned to the Spanish monarchy, King Ferdinand, and Queen Isabella, who eventually agreed to support his expedition after years of lobbying. Columbus's awaited dream of reaching Asia was dashed when he landed not in Asia or its islands, but in America. This video traces the journey of the first two voyages of Columbus. Columbus embarked on his first voyage on August 3, 1492 from the Spanish city of Palos de la Frontera, located in the region of Andalusia. He embarked on this journey with around 200 people and three ships named Santa Maria, Pinta, and Nina. Columbus underreported the distance traveled during his first voyage to America, claiming 707 units in his logbook while telling his crew they had covered only 584 units. Columbus underreported for about 26 times. This suggests he likely misled his crew to keep them motivated and committed to the journey. Columbus tried to keep his crew motivated by assuring them through indications of land, by observing various signs such as sightings of greenweed, specific birds like terns and boobies, and encounters with marine life like dolphins and whales, which tend to stay close to the land. He also noted petrels, bank clouds, light rain without wind, and water with reduced salinity. Although some of Columbus's methods were pseudoscientific, he did reach land on October 12, 1492. This he called San Salvador. After this, he discovered numerous islands, naming them variously, like for example, Isla de Santa Maria, Fernandina, Isabella, Juana, Hispaniola, Santiago, etc.
The sun shines and ship again sails. It's time for the second voyage. Columbus said, and I quote, "With God's will, the ship left for the high seas on 25th September 1493. With favorable wind and weather pattern, this time Columbus had reached the islands within 20 days of his sail. While the first voyage was more about navigating through the high seas, reaching island, set impression on the natives, and gathering data and collecting all sort of information related to the natives, the second expedition, in contrast, was more about to relieve the men who were there, to settle more colonies and conquer the island altogether. The interaction with the natives, which was warm, mutual and cordial at the both ends during the first voyage, soon displaced by suspicion, conflict, brutality and betrayal. During the first voyage, natives were perceived by Spaniards largely based on the idea of physical attribute, clothing pattern, and their warm, cordial outlook towards the stranger. These generalistic patterns and observations made by the Spaniard for the native got concentrated into the Eurocentric markers during the second voyage, and now the Spaniards perceive them on the basis of different parameters such as how civilized they are. Their willingness to interact with the Spaniards, which was appreciated during the first voyage, now called as the trait of an animal. Their larger religion and culture get subsided in the name of being them merely called as an idolaters. Hold on, if you think these Eurocentric remarks are just based on the idea of superiority of Spaniards and nothing more, then you are wrong. Rather, these has larger political implication. It was based on the larger idea of political ideology to establish the rule of submission and obedience through violence and brutality. No wonder why Columbus has left 300 men and sent all other back to the castle. Think upon this question and answer down below in the comment section. All your answers are cordially invited. Now, these Eurocentric remarks were just the first step. They went a step further. The Columbus and his men, like a modern day any other state, took the law and order in their own hand. They ordered the punishment to the natives in the form of death penalty through public prosecutions, slaughtering their hands, and like any other modern day government, which comes down very heavily on the dissenting voices, similar in manner, Spanish colonizers one by one removed their dissenters in order to establish larger submissive empire. Now, it's important to understand that it's not the only one way game. The attitude of the natives has also changed towards the Spaniards. The divine perception and the people coming down from the sky by this time has also changed into the idea of suspicion, and they show the signs of skepticism and started abandoning houses and all their belongings as they encountered the Spaniards further. Now, when we try to understand the interaction between Spaniards and the natives, it is very crucial to understand the trade exchange between the natives and Spaniards. Why so? Because time and again, Columbus has always tried to highlight the divine agency behind the whole voyage. But it is no hidden fact that it was largely based on the economic motive. Second, the trade exchange in itself hold a very significant place in the lives of the native, and it was through the exchange system that Columbus and his men sustained themselves so long on those islands. Initially, the trade was largely based on the barter system, where Columbus tried to give all sorts of things like beads, mirror, etc., and whatever he has brought from the Spain in order to make a good impression on the natives. And the natives in return also tries to give the local products out of their friendly gesture and assumption of them coming from the sky. At this stage, the Columbus and his men find out many deserted villages and the homes, but they restrain themselves from taking any provision from there. Then comes the another stage. Natives get accustomed to the Spanish products like beads, mirrors, etc., and they consider them very valuable and hence willingly wanted to trade with them. Columbus also bargained with them for many cotton, aloe vera, and other products whom he wanted to take back to the Spain. Then comes the very last stage and the very crucial one. The trade exchange involves the gold and silver here. Many natives have started understanding the Spanish desire for gold, and thus in Nineveh and other areas they exchange the product for the gold mask. At this stage, Columbus and his men become familiar with the local flora, fauna, and the food style, and hence started taking the food, cotton, and other sort of provisions from the deserted home in order to sustain themselves longer on those islands.
Was it a state making process? There are three activities of Columbus that do indicate something towards state making. First is record keeping. Columbus showed a deliberate commitment to record keeping during his voyage, carefully noting details about the environment and native people. This meant state involvement in people's lives. This practice served as an early form of census, gathering crucial information about the soon to be governed land and its inhabitants. Secondly, Columbus utilized native individuals as informants, selecting men and women from each island to gather information about their island's nature and resources. He subtly transformed these intermediaries into allies who spread Columbus's goodwill in their villages and facilitated communication. The third factor is the establishment of a settlement at Navidad by Columbus during his first voyage. The reasons included access to resources, proximity to indigenous population, a sheltered harbor, and exploration potential. This was to establish a Spanish foothold in the New World. Columbus's voyage marked the onset of European colonization, setting a precedent for further expansion worldwide. This approach, akin to what was used later by British in India, such as divide and rule, establishment of forts and settlements, and race as a tool for conquest. Was Columbus a modern man? In a way, we can say that three factors were in a constant play in these two voyages. These were pretension, assumptions, and illusion. Pretensions. Firstly, Columbus claimed to seek a trade route for Christian conversion but aimed for riches, as seen in his disregard for local resources like cotton. Secondly, Hernando portrayed Columbus as a highly educated man to enhance his father's image, despite Columbus's sponsorship being due to his noble status. Thirdly, Columbus's kindness to indigenous people often served strategic goals such as releasing captives to clear the path for future expeditions. Second, assumptions. First assumption was that Columbus relied on rough estimates and hearsay to calculate distances and locate islands, assuming each new island held gold and riches, fueling desires for instant wealth. Secondly, they believed that they could identify nearby land through observations of birds, animals, and vegetation, though these methods were often pseudoscientific. This raises question about whether Columbus was a modern man with modern means or not. Illusions. Firstly, Columbus attributed his journey and quest for gold to God's grace, with repeated references to God stemming from mental exhaustion during the voyage. One more illusion was that the discovery of new land fulfilled God's wish for King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, restoring divine justice. Religion could also have been a device to garner more support. Was this voyage for God and glory or for gold? Columbus and his contemporaries viewed indigenous people through a Eurocentric lens, often disregarding their suffering. Columbus's accounts display a sense of superiority, labeling indigenous people as animals and dismissing their customs as primitive. He overlooked their religious beliefs and cultural practices, interpreting nudity as an uncivilized behavior. Additionally, Columbus boasted about European military superiority, justifying violence and exploitation, attributing them to God and Catholic sovereigns. The native society showed empathy, evident in the king's sorrowful reaction to the loss of Columbus's ship. He mobilized assistance, ensured protection with armed guards, and served food to all, suggesting a well established etiquette system. Moreover, the society likely exhibited greater egalitarianism, with women participating in traditionally male activities like archery, as noted by Columbus. When analyzing Columbus's voyages, it is essential to consider the sources. Columbus's own accounts offer contrasting perspectives. His logbook presents unfiltered observations, while his letter is crafted to portray success. Another source is Gonzalo Fernandez de Ovedo's biased account, focusing on crediting the Catholic sovereigns and God for America's discovery and portraying Columbus as impoverished, contrasting with reality. Native descriptions vary, with Columbus seeing them as timid and Dr. Chanka as bold, highlighting subjective judgments. The question posed by this video is whether Columbus's voyages were successes or failures. His initial landing in America instead of Asia and the futile pursuit of gold can be seen as a failure, as well as his excessive focus on documenting flora out of desperation. However, when considering their impact on Europe, the voyages facilitated resource acquisition, exploitation of natives, and the establishment of trade routes, suggesting success for Europeans. Therefore, labeling Columbus's voyage a quote-unquote world success would be an overstatement, as his benefits were largely confined to Europe, while its costs were borne by the indigenous people of America, who suffered suppression, atrocities, deaths, and cultural destruction on a massive scale.